Hey guys, Dre here, and welcome to another video where I dress somehow like Bret the Hitman Hart, only black. Uh, but before I get into this video real quick, I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone that showed up to Autosport 2020 and everybody I got to meet. Many guys I saw down there: Danny, Lewis, Drew, John T from John T's corner in the F1 word in general. Those guys are great. Great to see everybody down there. It was nice to put some faces on some names and just see everybody. I'll probably end up doing 2 days next year and probably just booking a hotel somewhere and just making more of a weekend out of it, because that was great and I loved it. I really did love it, and I would like. Last year's was a bit more mediocre, but I actually enjoyed this one's a bit more. But it was great to see that. Great to see the cars and whatnot. Also, I love the fact that Ferrari and Mission Winman were giving away all the merchandise under the sun over the course of the weekend, including t-shirts and caps. Of course, because I was only there on the Sunday, they had no caps left, and by the time I got there, the only shirts they had were in a medium size. If anyone's seen me in person, I'm 6'2" and weigh 20 stone. Like, I am not fitting in a fucking medium. This is a 2X. I need a 2X. This is a medium. I've got 2 of these, and I'm gonna send them off to a couple of mates of mine very soon. But I thought that was quite funny, more than anything else. But hi guys, hope you guys are doing okay. Good to see you all. But yeah, I wanted to talk real quick about a situation that I thought was quite interesting, and that was the state of play for silly season and the driver market in general. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm wearing sunglasses, by the way, I've got quite a nasty sty on this eye right here. I'd rather spare you the trouble of seeing it, so I thought I'd look about 10% less ridiculous by wearing glasses. Forgive me. Anywho, Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen have both signed big extensions in going forward into Formula 1. Charles Leclerc signed a 5-year deal to keep him at Ferrari until 2024. Max Verstappen signed a 4-year deal a couple of weeks later to extend his contract to 2023. So this is very interesting because there's 2 very different dynamics going on here, but also arguably number 1 and number 2 of the most valuable drivers in the current paddock. Think about it. Lewis Hamilton is the best driver in the world. That's undisputable at this point, right? But he's 35. He's in the twilight of his F1 career. He realistically probably has only got 3 or 4 major seasons left. He might have one last big contract in him. Leclerc and Verstappen, I both believe, are 22 years old. And in terms of sheer value as drivers, they are probably number 1 and 2 in the driver market. These are probably the 2 biggest prizes of free agency, and they've already both been tied down. It's kind of a silly season buzzkill, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do find it very interesting to talk about these for a minute. Charles Leclerc first. I don't know why either party agreed a 5-year deal for either. I don't know why either party agreed to 5 years. I think that's ludicrous. In Formula 1, drivers tend to do 2 to 3 year deals. Once you hit 30 or 30 plus, they tend to become 1-year rolling contracts like we had with Mark Webber and Jenson Button towards the end of their respective careers. They did 1-year extensions left, right and centre. And I thought that was quite interesting that Ferrari wanted to tie Charles Leclerc down to a massive contract. But I also think it's interesting because long-term deals at Ferrari don't tend to work out very often. And their driver management history over the last 10 to 15 years suggests maybe you don't want to be at that team for a long time. I go back, I look at Kimi Räikkönen. Räikkönen did 3 years of that team and was literally bought out of his contract because he stopped giving a shit by the end of 2009, and Luca de Montezemolo hated him. He was booted out of that team. Felipe Massa had become the number 1 driver by then. And the thing with Massa was, obviously Massa peaked in 08 when he nearly won the world title. But then of course he had the horrible accident in 09. If anything, Ferrari probably should have been a bit more ruthless, and because they kept him at that team until 2013, and you could maybe make a case it cost him in a couple of close constructors fights, 2010 and 2012 specifically. They needed someone to take more points off Mark Webber, and they couldn't do it with Felipe Massa, who was just not competitive anymore. They probably kept Felipe around 2 or 3 years too long. Fernando Alonso was their star piece, but it was proven by the end of his run down there that he couldn't really manage a team. This was doubled down by his McLaren run towards the end of his time in F1. But Fernando Alonso did 5 years in that team, didn't win a major championship either, and 3 of the years he was dead on arrival because the car wasn't good enough to win anyway. 2014 in particular, the first year for the hybrids, Alonso completely struggled, Raikkonen was terrible, and Raikkonen got better as the hybrids went on, but Alonso was sick of Ferrari by then. He knew he wasn't going to win a world title with them, so he let it be Sebastian Vettel's problem instead. And look at Vettel now. He peaked probably 2 years ago in his time at Ferrari. He's coming towards year 6 in that team. And again, still no major title. 2019 was a mess. 2018 was a disaster towards the end. And 2017 was the last time it was really a major title threat. They've come again. They've come close. But it seems to be that long-term deals in Ferrari don't tend to work out in the end. And maybe you're better off from a leverage standpoint having a get-out-of-jail clause after maybe 2 years or something along those lines. Because it doesn't work with them there for the long run. It really doesn't. And Ferrari is a bit of a mess right now. The 2020 car apparently is only going to be lightly revised on the 19 car. It's obvious they're clearly going all in for the 2021 regulation change and seeing how that plays out in the field. And I think 2020 is going to be a warm-up year for that. I don't think Ferrari are focusing on winning now, ironically. Merchandise. I think they're focusing on 2021 when the new regulations come in because they want to be the new Mercedes. That's what Merckx did. They sacrificed the second half of 2013, focused on the hybrids that were coming, and then dominated. So I hope there's breaks in those Leclerc contracts and whatnot. I hope there's certainly a team or a driver clause in there to escape after a bad year, because that does not make any sense to me. And I think Sebastian Vettel had one when he left Red Bull. If he dropped out of the top 3 of the Drivers' Championship, he could leave the team at the end of the season. I wonder if there's something similar in place for Charles, because 5 years is a hearty commitment for a team that's not won a major title in 12 years. And that's what alarms me. If anything, it's the opposite with Verstappen. I'm honestly surprised Max tied himself down to Red Bull for another 4 years. Because I don't think people talk enough about this. Red Bull is mediocre as a team. I've said this for a long time, and no one seems to listen to me on this. Red Bull are the perennial bronze medalists. Occasionally they win a silver. They're like Great Britain's Olympic teams. We're just happy with silver most of the time. But I find it amazing that for a team that's hovered between second and third and are they are no closer to repeating their glory days. Like the end of the V8s, obviously, was what we're talking about here. But they are no closer to winning a major title now than they were in 2014 when the hybrid era began. Red Bull seems to always be the same pattern. They finish the year strong, they win about 3 races a year, and everyone thinks maybe this will be the year they be title contenders. And I'm like, they need to start converting more of these wins. Like, winning 3 races a year is never going to win you the championship. Either championship. You need to be winning 8 to 10, especially with Lewis Hamilton in the form of his life, to be thinking about major championships. And Max is not at that level yet. Don't get me wrong, this was the best Max Verstappen season yet. He is getting better every year. He's starting to harness more of his talent, and he's making less mistakes year on year. He's getting there. He absolutely is. He might just be the talent we all hyped him up to be when he first debuted in 2016, right? 15, sorry, I should say. But he's not challenged for a major title yet. Not even close. And I'm not sure that Red Bull's going to be the team you want to align yourself with if that's what you really want, which of course is what Max wants. Of course he's thinking championship. He'd be a fool not to in the team he's in. He's one of only 3 cars that can realistically win a race, let alone the title right now. Don't get me wrong, the Honda power unit has come a long way. They are certainly no longer bottom feeders in the context of the power wars in F1 with hybrids, and now Honda has absolutely come a long way. If you remember Pierre Gasly out-dragging Lewis Hamilton to Brazil in a straight drag race to the finish, it says a lot that Honda can no longer just be out-muscled off the line anymore. They actually have some power, and Red Bull's known for having good chassis, but they still don't have the complete package to challenge Mercedes every weekend. You know, that's the problem. Max's driver talent alone is not going to take them over the top in that regard, and yet he signed himself in for 4 more years of this. If I was Max, I'd be sitting there going, I only guarantees you're going to win me a title in the next 2 or 3 years, otherwise I'm gone. And I think if he put himself out there as a free agent, I think Merckx would be knocking his door very, very quickly. Remember, Merckx tried to sign him as a 15-year-old kid before he even touched a single-seat racing car when he was still in karting. The only reason Verstappen didn't go to Merckx was that Red Bull and their driver academy promised him a seat. They had 2 teams. They had the flexibility to be able to do that, and of course we all know they cleared the decks as Ricciardo moved up, Verne moved to Formula E, and then Carlos Sainz and Verstappen moved in, you know. And that's just it. Merckx have got a second chance, potentially, to sign the number 1 driver, I think, in free agency. You've got all the skills, like 95% of what Lewis Hamilton brings in terms of ability and speed, but maybe for 15 years. Because that's the sort of... Well, Max is still 22. So you could tie him down for years and years and years as the future best driver in the paddock. Because I think Verstappen, if you power ranked it right now, would be number 2, number 3 in terms of sheer pound-for-pound ability in Formula 1. But the value of him is the longevity. Something that you don't get with other guys in the field. So I'm stunned he ended up tying down to Red Bull for 4 seasons. I think that's alarmingly short-sighted. And I don't think Red Bull have got any indication, to me at least, that they're going to win a major championship anytime soon. It's not the Newey days anymore. He's too busy with his own little playground in the back office in Milton Keynes, drawing new designs and working with Aston Martin to build more hypercars. Like, it's not the Newey era anymore, and I'm not entirely convinced Red Bull's the team to do that. I think they're still putting the pieces together, which for a team that's been in this era and been able to win occasional races for the last 6 years, they should be being able to do a bit better than that by now. What I also find interesting is, what does this mean for silly season now? The major move is going to have to come from Lewis Hamilton or Sebastian Vettel, and I don't think Vettel's going to leave Ferrari just yet. Is it going to be Lewis Hamilton? Now, if Lewis wants one last big career move, if he wants one last feather in the cap to add to his legacy and maybe cement himself as the greatest of all time. We all know Maranello loves themselves a high-class driver, going back to even the days of like Jody Scheckter and Niki Lauda and Nigel Mansell. They love marquee drivers. They look at them like gods in Maranello. And that might be appealing for Hamilton. The last major chapter in his career would be winning Ferrari's first major title since 2008. That could be something that could be appealing to him, especially given his fashion interests, given that Ferrari is a strong brand to go alongside Hamilton's strong brand. You know, I know Merckx let Hamilton be himself, and that's valuable for a guy like him compared to his corporate days when it was a McLaren and they were trying to keep a certain image. I don't know how Ferrari would play into that, but he's got nothing more to achieve at Mercedes. He's won 5 championships there with them, won half the hybrid era races we've seen so far on TV. He's got nothing more to accomplish there. If he wants one last big challenge, maybe that could be the one that could appeal to him. Maybe Sebastian goes the other way. I don't think Valtteri Bottas will move on. I don't think he's the title threat we will want him to be in terms of the threat to Lewis and the championship. But I also think at the same time, I don't think that Merckx have any reason to let him go, because at worst he's a valuable number 2 clean-up guy, team player, willing to listen to team orders, willing to help the team win, and he's a solid piece you could have in any F1 team. Compared to the Rosberg days when it was 2 number 1s, this is a fucking breeze by comparison. So I'd love to see that. I mean, is there going to be any movement that way? That's what I also think is going to be interesting, but I'm not entirely sure we've got a silly season now. A lot of people were hyping themselves up about the possibility of this being a silly season of the ages because of so many people being under contract review. But I'm not convinced now that the number 1 and number 2 drivers on the market have already timed themselves down. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Have you got any ideas for where drivers could end up? Any silly season moves? Am I crazy for thinking that Leclerc and Verstappen's deals didn't make much sense? Let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, I've been Dre. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys soon. Sayonara.